A station floated in the darkness between stars. It was called Sen, and it was home to the Galactic Integration Academy. Students from over 200 different worlds came here to learn together. They learned about science, history, and how to live with species different from their own. The Academy had seen many strange students over the years. There were the tall predators with scales and sharp teeth. There were the insect-like beings who communicated through clicks and chemical signal. There were the four-armed giants with skin like stone. All of them were welcome. All of them had found their place. The Academy had never seen a human child before. Transport ship docked at Bay 12 on a quiet morning. Most students were already in their classrooms. The corridors were empty except for a few maintenance workers and the occasional teacher walking between buildings. Stepped off the transport holding her father's hand. She was 8 years old, small even for a human child. Her black hair was tied back in a simple ponytail. Her eyes were dark and curious, taking in everything around her. She wore the standard student uniform of the academy, gray and simple, but it looked too big on her thin frame. Father Park walked beside her. He was a diplomatic sent to work at the station as part of Earth's new relationship with the Galactic Council. He was tall for a human, with kind eyes and a calm smile. He had explained everything to before they arrived. He had told her about the different species she would meet. He had warned her that some of them might not be friendly at first. But what I said, told her quietly as they walked toward the academy building. Be patient, be polite, give them time to know you. She was nervous, but she did not show it. Her mother had always told her that fear was natural, but showing fear only made things harder, so kept her face calm and her step steady. Walking beside her, connected to her belt by a short lead, was Honey Bear. She was about 60 centimeters long with thick gray fur on top and black fur underneath. Her face had white markings that made her look almost friendly. Her small eyes were dark and watchful. Her claws were short but strong. She moved with a lazy, relaxed walk like she had no worries in the world. Brought from Earth specifically for the posting. Honey Bears were not common pets. They were difficult to train and even harder to keep calm around strangers, but had been with their family since she was young. She had grown up with. She slept at the foot of his bed every night. She followed everywhere like a shadow. Go back on Earth had questioned the decision to bring a honey bear to a space station full of aliens, had simply smiled and said that he needed a friend. What he did not say was that he had done his research. He knew exactly what honey bears were capable of. He knew that beneath Sleepy Parent was one of the most fearless creatures on Earth. The academy building was large and impressive. The walls were made of a smooth white material that seemed to glow softly from within. The corridors were wide enough for the large species to walk through comfortably. Screens on the walls displayed information in dozens of different languages. To the administrative office first. Official processed their documents with 4 hands moving at once. The official barely looked at and did not seem to notice at all. Classroom said, the official said in a deep, rumbling voice. Down the corridor, turn left, third door. The official and walked toward the classroom. At the door, he knelt down to look his daughter in the eyes. I have to go to work now, he said gently, but I will pick you up when classes end. You will be fine, I believe in you. To her father tightly. Then she let go, took a deep breath, and pressed the button to open the classroom door. The room inside was large and filled with light. There were about 30 students sitting at desks arranged in curved rows. At the front stood the teacher, a named instructor tell us. He was old for his species. His scales faded to a dull gray-green, but he still stood over 2 meters tall. His teeth were yellow and sharp. When the door opened, everyone turned to look. 30 pairs of eyes focused on her. Some of those eyes were simple and round. Some were compound and glittering. Some were narrow and predatory. All of them were curious. Walked into the room with padding along beside her. Silence stretched for a long moment. Then someone laughed. It was a harsh barking sound. A young in the front row was showing his teeth in what might have been amusement. What is that? Instructor Tellus asked, pointing one clawed finger at. Her name is said. Her voice was quiet but steady. She is my companion animal. She goes everywhere with me. Companion animal, Instructor Tellus repeated slowly. He looked at the small creature with obvious doubt. Is it safe? Very gentle, said. It was not exactly a lie. It was gentle with. What she was with others depended entirely on what they did. Laughter rippled through the classroom. The students seemed especially amused. They were predators, hunters from a jungle world where only the strong survived. To them, looked like food. She looked like something they might chase for fun. Students clicked their mandibles in what might have been dismissal or curiosity. The students simply watched with their heavy, stone-like faces, showing no expression. Seat at the back, Instructor Tellus said finally. We will continue with the lesson. Down the aisle between the desks, she felt eyes following her every step. She heard whispers in languages she did not understand. When she reached the back row, she found an empty desk in the corner. She sat down and placed her bag beside her. Once under the desk, then lay down with her head resting on her paws. Her eyes closed halfway, like she was about to fall asleep. She was not sleeping. She was watching. She was listening. Every sound, every movement, every shift in the air was being tracked by senses that humans could barely imagine. In the front row, the young who had laughed turned to his friends and whispered something. They all showed their teeth in cruel smiles. All them looking at her, she said nothing. She simply opened her tablet and prepared to take notes. Father had told her to be patient. Her mother had told her not to show fear, so she would be the first week passed slowly, attended her classes, completed her assignments, and ate her meals alone in the corner of the cafeteria. She did not complain. She did not cry. She simply went through each day with quiet determination. But things were getting harder. Who had laughed on her first day was named. He was the large student in the class, even bigger than some of the adults. His scales were dark green, almost black, and they shone like armor in the light. His teeth were white and perfectly sharp. His claws could cut through metal. From a powerful family on his father was a military commander. His mother was a clan leader. He had been raised to believe that strength was everything. The weak existed to serve the strong. That was the natural order of things. In his eyes was the weakest creature he had ever seen. Started small, a bump in the corridor that knocked her against the wall. Comment spoken just loud enough for her to hear. A laugh when she struggled to reach something on a high shelf. Then it got worse. Morning arrived at her desk to find her missing. She looked around the classroom confused, sat in the front row with his friends, watching her with obvious amusement. For something, he asked, his voice dripping with full concern. Nothing. She searched her bag, checked under her desk, looked around the floor. There was nowhere to be found. Instructor Tellus entered the room and began the lesson. Had to sit through the entire class without any way to take notes. When the lesson ended, she found her in the waste disposal unit, cracked and broken. Reported it to the administration. They gave her a new and promised to investigate. Nothing happened. No one was punished, smiled at her the next day like nothing had changed. Break, he said as he passed her desk. A spell a week thing. Not respond. She simply opened her new and began her work. Under the desk, watching walk away, her eyes tracked him like a predator tracking prey, but she did not move, she did not make a sound, she simply watched. The students noticed what was happening, but none of them helped. The students followed because he was the strongest among them. The students did not want to get involved in what they saw as primitive dominant behavior. The students believed in non-interference. It was not their conflict. Only one student seemed troubled by what she saw. Her name was, she was a but different from the others of her species. Most communicated through clicks and chemicals, their minds focused on logic and efficiency, but had been born with an unusual gift. She could sense emotion. She could feel the feelings of other beings like ripples in water. She looked at, she felt sadness and loneliness, but she also felt something else, something deeper, a quiet strength that did not bend no matter how hard it was pushed. She looked at, she felt nothing. It was strange, all animals had emotion. Fear, hunger, contentment, anger had sensed them in countless creatures across many worlds, but when she reached out toward the small furry animal under his desk, she found only stillness, only patience, only waiting. It made her uncomfortable in a way she could not explain. Harassment continued, grew bolder each day. Began following through the quarters, his three friends always close behind. They called themselves a pack like the hunting groups on there. They would surround her, blocking her path, forcing her to squeeze past their massive bodies. Are you going, little prey? Would ask, his breath hot against her face, running away. If ran, she never showed fear. She would wait until they moved or she would find another path. Her face stayed calm even when her heart was beating fast. A day in the cafeteria knocked her food tray out of her hands. The crash drew attention from everyone in the room. Food scattered across the floor. Uniform was stained with sauce. Oops, said loudly, humans are so clumsy. Pack laughed, other students looked away. The cafeteria workers pretended not to see. Down and began picking up the scattered food. Her hands were steady, her expression was blank. Beside her, very still, the honeybatter's fur had risen slightly along her spine. Her lips were pulled back just enough to show the tips of her teeth, but she did not growl. She did not attack. She simply stood there, watching with those dark, empty eyes. It was the animal looking at him. He laughed and reached down toward. What are you looking at, little snack? Do not touch her, said quietly. It was the first time she had spoken directly to. Her voice was soft, but there was something in it that made pause, a warning, a line being drawn. His hand back not because he was afraid, but because he was surprised. The prey had spoken. The prey had given him an order. It was amusing. What? He asked, leaning down until his face was close to hers. What will you do, little human? Looked up at him. Her dark eyes met his predator gaze without flinching. Nothing, she said. I will do nothing. Laughed again and walked away with his pack. He thought he had won. He thought he had proven his dominance. The human had admitted she was powerless. She would do nothing. I had not said that she would do nothing because she was powerless. She had said it because she did not need to do anything. Would handle it. To the table, the honey badger settled back into her relaxed position. Her fur flattened. Her lips covered her teeth. She looked like a harmless pet again. But something had changed. Watching from across the cafeteria, felt it clearly. When it reached toward the honey badger, something had shifted in the animal mind. The stillness had become something else. Something sharp. Something ready. Felt that feeling before in creatures about to strike, in predators about to kill. It was the moment before violence. The moment when a decision was made. I made a decision. Not know what it meant, but she knew one thing for sure. Had made a terrible mistake. Knight went to her room and accessed the Galactic database. She typed in a search for Earth fauna, specifically the small creature called a honey badger. Alone in her room, staring at the screen in front of her, the information glowed softly in the darkness. She had read it 5 times already, and each time it made less sense. Galactic database contained records on millions of species from thousands of worlds. Every known animal, plant, and microorganism had an entry. The entries include physical descriptions, behavioral patterns, habitat information, and most importantly, threat classification. Classifications range from harmless to extreme. Most small animals fell into the harmless or low categories. Larger predators were usually rated moderate or high. Only the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy received an extreme rating. Honeybatter's entry was short but terrifying. The common name Honeybatter, origin Earth, size small, approximately 68 centimeters in length, weight 19 kilograms. Pause there. The creature was tiny. It weighed less than a newborn. How could something so small be dangerous? She kept reading. Rule notes, extremely aggressive when threatened. Will attack without provocation if territory is invaded. Shows no fear response to larger predators. Has been documented attacking and drying off lions, leopards, hyenas, and other apex predators many times its size. Will fight to the death rather than retreat. Pain tolerance among highest recorded in Earth fauna. Immune to most venoms including cobra and scorpion toxin. Loose skin allows it to twist and bite attackers even when held. Mandibles clicked nervously as she continued. Behavior, pursues prey with extreme persistence. Known to chase prey for kilometers without stopping. Once engaged, does not disengage. Will continue attacking until target is dead or driven away. Reclassification extreme. Warning, do not approach. Do not provoke. Do not attempt to handle without specialized training and equipment. This species does not recognize size differences and will attack any perceived threat regardless of the attacker's physical superiority. While the text was a video, press play. Footage showed a honey badger in some kind of earth wilderness. The small creature was eating something when a group of large predators approached. Recognized them from other database entries as lions, among the most dangerous land predators on Earth. Lions surrounded the honey badger. They roared and swiped with massive paws. Any sane creature would have run. Any sane creature would have abandoned its food and fled. The honey badger attacked. Launched itself at the nearest lion, biting and clawing with insane fury. The lion, easily 20 times the badger's size, stumbled backward in surprise. The other lions tried to help, but the honey badger was everywhere at once, twisting and turning, biting anything that came close. Video ended with the lions retreating. The honey badger went back to eating its meal. It was the database and sat in silence for a long time. Thought about the quiet human girl who never fought back. She thought about the young who thought he was an ape's predator. She thought about the small furry creature that slept peacefully under his desk every day. The creature was not a pet. It was not harmless. It was something that made lions run away. It had been threatening its human every single day. Next morning arrived at class early. She watched Enter with walking calmly beside her. The honey badger looked exactly the same as always, sleepy, relaxed, harmless. Now knew better. Now she could see the truth hiding behind those dark eyes. I've with his pack a few minutes later. As usual, he made a point of walking past the desk. As usual, he knocked her shoulder with his hip, hard enough to push her sideways. Good morning, pray, he growled. Nothing. She straightened in her seat and continued organizing her materials. Not move, but saw her eyes follow as he walked to his seat. The Hunbatter's gaze never left him, not for a second. The decision. During the midday break, she approached the pack in the recreation area, was lounging on a bench with his friends, laughing at something. Said, her voice carrying clearly through her translator, I need to speak with you. Looked up with amusement. I wants to talk to me, this should be interesting. You should stop bothering the human girl, said directly. You should stop threatening her. You've been turned to annoyance. Why, what business is it of yours? That animal she keeps with her said, do you know what it is? Snack, one of his friends said, and they all laughed. It's called a honey badger, continued, ignoring them. It is one of the most dangerous creatures on Earth. It attacks predators much larger than itself. It does not feel fear. It does not retreat. It will fight until it dies or until its enemy is dead. Stared at her for a moment, then he burst out laughing. His pack joined in. Tiny thing, said between laughs. That ball of fur, you expect me to believe that is dangerous. I'm trying to warn you, said quietly. Consider your warning ignored. Stood up, towering over the small. Go back to your calculations, insect. Leave the real world to real predators. Back away slowly. She had given him a chance. He had refused to listen. Whatever happened next was his own fault. Days continued. Harassment grew worse. He began tearing Sasamet. He spread lies about humans being disease carriers. He made other students afraid to sit near her. But all remained calm. She completed her work. She attended her classes. She never complained, never cried, never showed any sign of weakness. Through it all, waited. The Hun batted her carefully now. She noticed things she had missed before. The way his ears would turn toward sounds of approaching. The way her mouth would tense slightly whenever he got close to. The way her eyes would track his movements like a targeting system. Hun batter was not sleeping. She was not relaxed. She was coiled like a spring, waiting for the moment to release. An afternoon saw Grab's arm in the quarter. His claws pressed into her skin, not quite breaking through but leaving marks. Did not cry out. She simply waited for him to let go. Stood very still at his feet. For just a moment felt something from the honey badger's mind. Not stillness, not patience. Something hot and bright and absolutely terrifying. Rage. Or ancient evolutionary rage. The rage of a species that had survived on Earth by being too angry to die. The rage of a creature that attacked everything and feared nothing. It was building, growing, getting ready. Field exercise was supposed to be a simple biology lesson. The class would visit the stations, study some of the preserved ecosystems, and write a short report on what they observed. It was routine. It was safe. It was where everything changed. It was a massive structure at the heart of 7. Under its curved ceiling, different environments from different worlds were maintained in separate sections. There were forests, deserts, oceans, and grassland. Each section was carefully controlled to support life from Pacific land. Instructor Tellus led the class through the main entrance. Students spread out in small groups, examining plants and small animals, taking notes on there. The artificial sunlight was warm. The air smelled of growing things. Walked alone toward the edge of the fourth section. Followed Chloe beside her, sniffing the air with interest. This was the most nature either of them had experienced since leaving Earth. For a moment, almost felt at peace. Should have known it would not last. Hey, pray. Stood behind her with his 3. They had followed her away from the main group, away from the instructor's view. They were surrounded by tall trees. No one could see them here. Leave me alone, said quietly. What? Stepped closer, his scales catching the artificial light. You will do nothing, remember? You told me yourself. Spread out, forming a loose circle around, and they were all showing their teeth. They were excited. They smelled blood. I've been patient with you, human, continued. I have given you a chance to learn your place, but you never learn. You just keep walking around like you belong here, like you are equal to us. Reached out and grabbed his arm. His claws sank into her skin. Blood welled up around his fingers. In pain, but did not scream. She had promised herself she would never give him that satisfaction. A not equal growled, lifting her off the ground. Her feet dangled in the air. You are prey, you are weak, you are nothing. One of his laughed. Let us see how loud humans scream, he said. His grip, more blood ran down his arm. Tears gathered in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She would not break, she would not give in. He did not need to. The sound came first. It was like nothing any of them had ever heard. A rattling, screaming, hissing noise that seemed to come from the depths of a nightmare. It was the sound of something that had evolved on a different world, something that had survived by being more vicious than everything around it. Moved it. The moment she was on the ground. The next she was in the air, a blur of gray and black fur launching towards face. Her mouth was open, showing teeth that suddenly looked much larger than before. Her claws were extended like tiny knives. Dropped instantly, his hands came up to protect his face, too late. Him like a small missile. Her teeth sank into his arm, the arm that had just been hurting. They bit through scales that could stop knife blades. They cut through muscle like it was soft fruit. Not a predator's roar, but a scream of shock and pain and sudden, overwhelming fear. He swung his arm wildly, trying to throw the creature off. Any other animal would have been sent flying. Any other animal would have retreated. Did not retreat. Loose skin allowed her to twist her entire body around while still gripping his arm. She adjusted her bite and clamped down harder. Blood sprayed through the air. Get it off, shrieked, get it off me. He rushed forward to help. 3 young, each one an ape's predator from a world where they feared nothing. Go of his arm and dropped to the ground. She turned to face the 3 new threats. Her first stood straight up, making her look twice her normal size. Her teeth were red with blood. That horrible rattling sound poured from her throat without stopping. The 3 froze. Predators, they had instincts. Their instincts were screaming at them right now. Everything in their biology, everything in their evolutionary history was telling them one thing, danger. This small creature was danger. This small creature was death. It was not a conscious thought. It was deeper than that. It was the same instinct that made their ancestors avoid certain caves, search shadows, search sounds in the night. It was the knowledge that some creatures were simply not worth fighting. Took one step toward them. They ran. The apex predators, each capable of killing most species in the galaxy with their bare claws, turned and ran from a creature that weighed 12 kilograms. Left alone, he stumbled backward, his injured arm hanging uselessly at his side. Blood dripped from the deep wounds in his scales. His eyes were wide with terror. What are you? He whispered. Not answer. She positioned herself between him, who was sitting on the ground clutching her bleeding arm. The honey badger's eyes never left her teeth never stopped showing. The rattling sound continued like a promise of violence. Himself against a tree, he was trembling. The greatest predator in his class, the strongest student in the academy, was trembling before a creature the size of his foot. Footsteps approached. Instructor Tellus burst through the trees, followed by several other students. They all stopped when they saw the scene before them. Being terrified, pressed against a tree, injured but calm, sitting on the ground, and between them a small furry animal making sounds that came from nightmares. What happened here? Instructor Tellus demanded. Looked up at him with clear eyes. Attacked me, she had simply. Defended me. Badger seemed to understand that help had arrived. The rattling sound slowly faded. Her fur began to flat. She walked over to and sat beside her, once again looking like a harmless pet. Everyone had seen, everyone had heard, everyone knew the truth now. Instructor Tellus looked at for a long moment. Then he looked at who was still shaking against the tree. Get him to the metal bay, the instructor ordered his teaching assistant. Then he turned to the other students. Everyone returned to the main entrance. Field exercise is over. The students filed away. Many of them looked back at her and her small companion. They looked at her differently now, not with pity, not with dismissal. With respect, maybe a little fear. Gently stroked his head. Good girl, she whispered, thank you. On showing all of her bloodstained teeth and settled down against the leg. Would always protect her human. That was what she was for. That was what she did. The emergency meeting was called within hours. State commander of great age and authority sat at the head of the conference table. Around him were gathered representatives from every species involved. Diplomats, administrators, human officials, and academy staff all filled the room. He sat calmly in his chair, his hands folded on the table. His expression was pleasant and polite, the same expression he always wore, but anyone watching closely might have noticed a certain sharpness in his eyes. Across from him sat the ambassador, a massive female named. Her scales were dark red, and her teeth were even larger than his. She had been radiating anger since she entered the room. Her daughter's animal attacked the student, growled. A juvenile, it drew blood, it caused serious injury. Her daughter's animal defended her from assault, replied calmly, as it was trained to do. Assault, claws scraped against the table, a symbol dominant display. It's not simple, interrupted gently, and was not just a display. I have the medical records here. He touched his and sent the files to everyone's screens. Puncture wounds to my daughter's arm, deep tissue damage, scarring that may be permanent. The room fell silent as everyone looked at the images. Small arm, marked with 4 deep holes where his claws had penetrated her skin. Blood soaking her uniform sleeve. The wounds had been cleaned and treated, but they still looked painful. Son lifted my 8-year-old daughter off the ground by her arm, continued, his voice still calm and pleasant. His claws were embedded in her flesh. His stated intention was to make her scream. He paused. In human legal terms, that is assault with intent to cause bodily harm. On many Earth nations, it would be considered attempted torture of a child. Gale paled subtly. He's young, he does not understand. Understood enough to target the smallest and weakest person in his class, said. He understood enough to wait until there were no witnesses. He understood enough to bring 3 friends to ensure she could not escape. He tilted his head. Those are not the actions of someone who does not understand. Those are the actions of a predator hunting prey. Master opened her mouth to argue, but station commander raised one massive hand. Enough, he rumbled. The facts are clear. Young initiated violence. The human companion animal responded. The matter of who is at fault is not complicated. Back in her chair, her anger was fatting, replaced by something that looked almost like embarrassment. On her world, there was no greater shame than having one's young defeated by a smaller opponent, had been bested by a creature that barely reached his knee. The question that remains, continued, is what to do now. I have a suggestion, if I may. Speak. My daughter does not want expelled or punched severely, said. She understands that he's young and may learn from the experience. She only wants to be left alone to pursue her education in peace. That is generous, said slowly. Zara and generous, relied. We have had to be. We are not the strongest species on our planet. We are not the fastest. We are not the most dangerous. He smiled slightly. But we have formed partnerships with species that are dogs, horses, falcons, and yes, creeps-like. Lean forward. Ambassador, I understand your concern. A small creature injured a member of your species. It seems impossible. It seems wrong. His voice softened. But you must understand something about Earth. Our world is what galactic scientists call a death world. Everything there is trying to kill everything else. The plants are poisonous. The insects carry diseases. The predators are efficient beyond belief. The honey badger, he continued, is one of the most successful survivors on that world. Not because it is large, not because it is strong, but because it does not know how to give up. It does not know how to feel fear. It attacks anything that threatens it regardless of size, regardless of odds. Lions have learned to avoid it. Leopards leave it alone. Even venomous snakes cannot kill it. The room was very quiet. I've walked alongside such creatures for thousands of years, said. We have learned from them, we have adopted them, we have made them part of our families. He looked directly at, was not protecting a random human. She was protecting her family, her pack. There is nothing in the galaxy that could have stopped her from doing that. Looked at him for a long moment, then she lowered her head slightly. I will speak with my son, she said quietly. He will not bother your daughter again. Thank you, said graciously. Again, shortly after, agreements were made, apologies were offered, life on the station began to return to normal. Not exactly normal, something had changed. Returned to class the next day, the students had been transferred to a different section. Officially, it was for scheduling reasons. Everyone knew the real reason. Students nodded to her as she passed, the clique greeting in her direction. Even instructor Tellus seemed to treat her with more respect than before. She was waiting at a desk near the back of the room. When approached, the gesture to the empty seat beside her. May I sit with you? Asked. It was a genuine smile, warm and bright, of course. He sat together as class began, curled up under his desk, looking as sleepy and harmless as ever. Students who walked past gave the honey badger a wide berth, even though she never moved. Word spread across the station over the following weeks. Then it spread to other stations. Then it traveled across communication networks that spanned the galaxy. Let's keep predators as pets, not just ink predators. The kind of predators that make apex hunters run away. The kind of predators that do not understand fear. The kind of predators that will fight anything anywhere for any reason. And those predators love their humans, protect their humans, would die for their humans. Species that had looked down on humanity began to reconsider. Diplomats who had dismissed human concerns began to listen more carefully. Traders who had tried to cheat human merchants suddenly became more honest. But he wanted to find out what other creatures humans kept as friends. Station 7 continued her education. She made friends with and several other students. She excelled in her classes. She grew up to become one of the first human ambassadors to the Galactic Council. And wherever she went with her. Honey Badger lived for many years, far longer than most of her species. When she finally passed, held her and wept like she had lost a sister, because she had. The legacy of that small, fearless creature lived on. Every human who traveled to the stars carried a piece of that legacy with them. The knowledge that size did not matter, that fear could be overcome, that the smallest creature could defeat the largest enemy if it simply refused to stop fighting. And he had learned that lesson from, and all the creatures like her. Now the galaxy was learning it too. Now everyone on the station knew it. Then that it was only a matter of time. Something was going to happen, something bad. She quietly began moving her desk further from group and class. Did not want to be nearby when the Honey Badger finally stopped waiting. She found kept her awake until morning. She would not show fear. Beneath her desk waited,